discussing a little bit earlier on, the prospects of the unknown scare quite a lot of people. Matriculants starting a new chapter in their lives, job seekers, new businesses, so much more in terms of the beginning of a brand new year. Now we have psychologists to guide us on how to better equip ourselves for a future, plan better, and also manage this very tricky part of our lives for our matric students, if you're a matric student and also if you're a parent. Amber Mehony joins us now. Thank you very much indeed. We were chatting a little bit earlier on, but let's recap, I guess, a little bit. It's a very difficult time for matric students, even the ones that know they've done well. There's anxiety, perhaps they want A's and 5 A's and 1 B is just not good enough, that kind of thing. So they put pressures on themselves, and then there'll be students that perhaps are not going to do well. The results are coming out tomorrow. What do these children, young people, need to do to cope with these feelings and manage these feelings?
They're going to get results. There's nothing they can do to change it. Typically, as human beings, we've got 3 normal responses to that kind of impact. And the first one is to catastrophize, to make it the end of the world. And certainly, for a lot of the learners, maybe some of the learners that failed, it will feel like the end of the world. The truth is it's not. And it's hard, and it's unpleasant, and it's unwelcome, and it's going to be really grueling. But they're going to live through it. And so I would say, don't catastrophize. Keep it in perspective. The second response is one of denial. You know, you just bury your head in the sand and go and play some video games and check out and dissociate. And actually, where that's problematic is that it robs you from the opportunity of actioning something. Supplementary exams can be written. You can get remarks. You can strategize around how you want to use this year to reclaim what you feel you've lost. So denial can be really counterproductive. And then the last typical response is to minimize, which is often what families can tend to do when there's bad news. Don't worry about it, it's nothing, it doesn't matter, it doesn't count. It's hard. And there needs to be a process of grieving and mourning and acknowledging the difficulty without making it bigger than it is.
So the results do come out. We don't catastrophize, we try and manage the situation, but there's 2 sets of things that do happen. Those that pass are starting on a new journey, and I suppose that comes with its own fears, anxieties as well. How do we manage starting a new future now that you've gotten past this hurdle?
Peter, it's amazing how all of us want change and difference, but when it comes towards us, we can kind of clam down and just want to stay with what we know. And I think the newness of a new environment takes a lot of post-matriculants by surprise. They've had a very predictable routine for 13 years. They've had probably, maybe 1 or 2 changes, but a similar peer group, and suddenly the whole world opens up. And to try and almost embrace largeness rather than be confined by anxiety and step into newness as opposed to just staying with predictable same. It takes courage, but it's the way of growing, it's the way of human expansion, it's the way of personal development.
And then those that don't quite get through, and this is where you were saying that don't go into denial and don't bury your head in the sand. What steps should they be thinking about doing in trying to now chart a course forward? Because as you said, some of them do catastrophize and they think it's the end of the world, but it isn't.
It isn't. The first step is to just get as much information as possible, and their school should be able to provide that for them. So if they need to apply for a remark or if they need to apply for supplementary exams, ignorance doesn't help, and to be very proactive about getting the information they need, and being proactive about defining a strategy for the year. If they need to redo the matric year, it's a year. When we've got a few of those under our belts, then we realize that a year actually doesn't count such a huge amount in the big scheme.
All right, so now I'm a parent who's got a matric student this year. What must I do with my daughter this year?
That's a big question. One she may not want me to reply to. Your daughter is probably around 17, and that's a hugely important stage for parents and teenagers. The most important feature of it is separation. And for you to be able to allow her to differentiate and for her goals and achievements to be her own without it defining the parent, that's really what this kind of stage of young adulthood is all about. It's often as hard for the parents to let go as it is for the the young adults to claim their independence, but it just allows for uncluttered, unfettered experience of life for both people.
And I guess we're in danger also of transferring our own anxieties to them, and then their fears, our fears become their fears because they're scared of letting us down, as opposed to saying, this is what I want for my life, this is what I need to do.
Yes, well, as parents, we tend to feel their feelings double because we've got their stuff and our stuff to deal with. And again, that's if we can just separate and individuate and allow our children, you know, we can't protect them from the hard stuff, but to know that they've got enough resources to mobilize to action whatever they need to do, and to almost step back and watch it happen. That's our challenge.
Okay, so that's the matric students. What about us human beings in general? At the beginning of the year, we often tot up a few New Year's resolutions, and somehow December comes and we haven't attacked them. What should we be doing, just you and I, looking at the year ahead? What kind of things do you think might help us to, I don't know, maybe set us up for the year ahead?
You know, I love New Year. I love a New Year because it's a chance for a new beginning. And societies have usually always had rituals around death and rebirth. Our New Year's Eve parties may not fall into that category. They're a little milder. And a lot of people do feel like death on January the 1st. But to be able to use a new year as a new opportunity to leave things behind, to start afresh with new goals. And there's the concept being bandied around of dryathon, which is, instead of running a marathon, you take on a 4-week abstinence of a particular habit that you're trying to move away from. And it's somehow more manageable. It's not lifelong. It's not telling yourself that you're never going to, I won't say have the cup of coffee because there's no way coffee's going into it. But once you've broken that 4-week barrier, you actually are in a position then to choose whether or not you want to pick it up again or put it down for longer.
All right. And how do you manage with all this, I guess, fears? Fear of failure and all of these kinds of things, and because that's often what holds us back in becoming our full selves in a year, isn't it?
And I would say, certainly as a psychologist, that's what I see the most of. All of us are inhibited by fears, and it's what restrains us from living the life that we could live. And there's a lovely Jungian expression around saying that the life that we live, it only counts when it's beyond the parameters of our fear. And that whatever life we live within the scope of those fears, really playing it safe, no challenge, no growth, feeling secure, but at what cost? And for us to try little bit by little bit, just reclaim a little bit of that territory outside that ring fence. That's where we're going to find life and newness.
So do stuff that scares us.
Well,
within reason.
Yes.
No jumping out of aeroplanes without a parachute.
Definitely not.
But we're going to have to leave it there. But thank you very much indeed for giving us a perspective that we can embrace, particularly for the matric students and parents, and also just us in general. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay. That was